Hey guys, it's Latoya. Welcome to a new episode of Pieces of Lily. Today we're going to talk about IEP planning. We received our letter today letting us know that we have our annual or follow-up IEP meeting scheduled in about 10 days. And so I want to kind of share with you what I've done or what I plan to do in order to prepare for it, because it's a very, very important meeting, right? So first things first, we'll kind of go backwards a little bit. What exactly is an IEP? So an IEP is an individualized education plan that you can have put in place for your child if they have certain diagnoses. For example, autism or ADHD. And what this plan does is it kind of helps give accommodations and levels the playing field so that your child can grow, participate, and just be on a level playing field with other children who do not have any disorders or diseases or other things like that that'll prevent them from being able to be successful in school. So this is a plan that you can have in place to help make sure that your child's successful. This is something that's backed by the government. There is a act, I think it's called IDEA, and it backs the IEP, and it basically says that every child has the right to be on a level playing field. And so that's exactly why we went on ahead and pursued that, to make sure that Aaliyah was successful in everything that she does in school. So we got that in place about a year ago. We worked hard on getting it in place probably 6 months prior. It was definitely a long process, especially with COVID and all of that. So it took a while, but we got it in place, and it's been helpful thus far. But you know, she's a whole year older now, and it's important to kind of update things. So that's what this meeting is for, is to update her goals and update her potential accommodations. So what do I mean by accommodations, right? Well, let's back up to maybe some of her needs. So for example, for my daughter Aaliyah, when she was in kindergarten, she really, really struggled with transitions, and she still struggles with transitions. And what do I mean by that? So transitions could be, for example, going from math class and then it's time for lunch. She really struggled with transitioning from one place to another, specifically when she had to leave the classroom. And so what we put in place for her in kindergarten was we were able to get the school to create like a little calendar for her to keep on her desk so that she could see, okay, we just finished math, so now it's time to do English and language arts, and then we'll go to lunch. You know, so she had a visual aid to be able to help her remember and prepare for the fact that, hey, I'm about to have to get out of class, go in a single file line, go down this hallway, follow all these rules in order to get my lunch. That visual aid was helpful for her. Another accommodation we made is that, you know, and I think this is true for a lot of children, is they get kind of antsy, restless, things like that, sitting in those hard, cold seats. And so an accommodation we were allowed to do is bring a wobble cushion, which you can find those on Amazon. You can find it anywhere really. And you can find really cute ones. Hers has unicorns all over it. But it's a sensory tool. It's got like little pokey things all around it, but it's comfortable. It's not crazy. But it's a cushion she can sit underneath her. It's kind of giving her sensory or some sort of sensation to kind of help keep her engaged, instead of her focusing on, oh, this seat's hard, oh, this seat's cold, oh, this is awful, right? So those were some accommodations we made for her. Another big accommodation that we made for her is test taking and homework. She was between all of the participants in the IEP meeting, we were able to come to an agreement to allow her to get time and a half on all of her homework, all of her testing, all of those different things. Now, did she always use it? No, not so much. But, you know, oftentimes she gets overwhelmed, especially when there's a sheet of paper in front of her with a ton of things on there and she's got to complete all of it. She gets overwhelmed. And so, you know, extending her time to complete tasks definitely gave her an advantage, or helped her to be able to, for it to be more feasible for her to complete it in its entirety. We also did other things like chunking, where she could fold her page, like cut it in half and only see half of the work instead of being overwhelmed with all 30 problems or whatever. You could cut it in half and that helped her out a lot, so that she didn't get overwhelmed. But those are some examples of accommodations that can be made for specific reasons for children who have an IEP. Now, let's talk about who's even involved in making an IEP, right? Typically, of course, the parents or whoever the caregiver is, they're invited to come, of course, right? But in addition to that, from the school standpoint, they typically, or at least in my experience, they typically have the child's teacher. So if they're in a general education class, then their general ed teacher, or if they're in a special education class, their special ed teacher. But in my daughter's case, she's in a general education class, so of course they have her teacher, but they also have a teacher from the special ed department to come in and weigh in as well. In addition to that, if your child needs speech therapy, occupational therapy, things like that in the school setting, though those providers will be present as well. A lot of times, or almost always, the guidance counselor is present. There's usually the clinical psychologist or the school psychologist will be present. The principal's always present. And then there may be a few other staff from the school that are present for various reasons, whatever it is that your child's needing. So last year we had all of those folks in our meeting because we were really just starting from the beginning. She was in kindergarten. We were trying to figure out what she needs, what she doesn't need, things like that, right? But now, fast forwarding to 2023, we are halfway through first grade. So, speech therapy and occupational therapy didn't see a need for her, for them to continue to keep working with her. So it's my understanding that they won't be present in the IEP meeting. Now, if they are, that's great. But she's not receiving any services from them. And in fact, she tested out of speech therapy in the spring of last year. Definitely her first grade teacher, Miss Green, she'll be present, of course. The special ed teacher or representative, she'll be present. She's actually the one that reached out to me about setting up the IEP. She sent me a quick little message in an app called Class Dojo that you guys may be familiar with or may not, and just let me know, hey, it's coming up. I'm going to be sending some stuff home, be on the lookout, and Happy New Year, and so she will definitely be present. And then I know her principal, the school psychologist, and some other folks will be there as well. But I know in a lot of people's cases, and I know especially for me in the beginning too, it was extremely overwhelming because, if you were able to do it in a conference room setting, you're walking into a room with, upwards of 15 people in there. In our case with COVID, we did Zoom meetings. And so still you're walking into a space, you're entering into a space with people you don't know and a ton of people you don't know, right? And your hope is that they're, the way they view your daughter and the goals and things that in the vision they have for your daughter is the same as what yours are, right? As a parent and as a caregiver. So, but it can be overwhelming just because it's so many people. Everybody's going to speak. Everybody has an opinion or a thought or whatever. And so, it's really important that you come in prepared and ready, and which is great because, it's great that they let you know in advance. That way you can do that, right? And I think state law says like 10 days prior. I could be a little off on that. And if I'm incorrect, please drop that in the comments below. But I think the law says 10 days prior. So they did do that. But in addition to that, state law says that they have to give you a copy of a draft IEP that they've come up with 24 hours prior to the actual meeting for you to review. In my case, they sent a letter asking, do you want this or do you want to forego that, opportunity? And I was like, no, I definitely want it. So they'll be sending that, I'm sure, via email 24 hours before for us to look at and view. But for this particular IEP meeting, this isn't our first time doing this. She already has goals in place. She already has accommodations in place. All of that, nothing's new to that, right? What's new and which I'm excited to do is changing her goals because she has grown so much. And even her first grade teacher is like, I'm looking at this IEP, I'm looking at these accommodations. These things don't apply to your daughter anymore. Like, were these real things? Like, she literally asked me, like, was this like legit? Like, for example, on her IEP last year, one of her goals was to follow directions by the teacher in fewer than 2 prompts. Meaning, before they were having to tell her 3 and 4 times, hey, take out your pen, write on your paper, or apple, or sit in your seat or whatever. She's like, that's not even a thing. I talk to her the same way that I speak with her the same way I speak with everyone else. If she says, all right, class, everybody get up and get in a single file line, she does that. So she's like, none of these goals are appropriate anymore. So I'm excited to change them. I know that she still struggles with transitions, but not with the same intensity as before. Before she would physically not move herself. She would whine, she would complain, she wouldn't use her words. She, have her meltdowns and things like that. And that's not so much the case anymore now. And so I'm grateful for that, but she still struggles with, going on ahead and doing, transitioning from something that's preferred to something that's non-preferred. So for example, going from the playground back to class, she struggles with that. Most kids do, but it's a little bit more intense, especially with a child on the spectrum. So, I'm excited to change her goals and, really look at the growth, and, just see how far she's come. I'm excited for that. And so something that I really want to advise you all in preparation for the IEP meeting is that you are allowed to bring anyone that you want into the meeting with you. They're bringing everybody, right? So you're allowed to bring people with you too. And they do ask that you, let them know in advance, hey, who's coming, so that they can accommodate. But I think that's mostly in the sense of, like, if you're going to a conference room setting, hey, are we going to have enough chairs for your entourage, but they do ask that you let them know in advance. In my particular case, myself, her father, and usually her board certified behavior analyst attends her BCBA. And if you're unfamiliar, BCBA is a therapist who sets a plan for your child when they're receiving ABA therapy. And that's simply a behavior therapy. And from what I understand, it's the only therapy that's been approved to help improve the quality of life of a child with autism. So she does have a BCBA. And also this year we went on ahead and we invited her RBT, her registered behavior technician too. Because quite honestly, the BCBA, they're great because they're the ones that create the plans. They have set forth the goals and they create the plan, but the RBT, or the registered behavior technician, they're the ones that actually come into the home, come into the clinic, wherever it is that you do your therapy, and they're the ones that actually implement or work with the child to achieve those goals. They're the ones that are hands-on every single day. The board certified behavior analysts are not. Ours comes once a week. So, and whereas her RBT, she has one that she sees Monday through Friday, and then she has one that she sees on Saturdays. So the RBTs are the all hands on deck individuals, right? But I went on ahead and invited her because I really think that the one in particular that comes to the home, she has a great insight on what works, what doesn't work, what Aaliyah needs, what Aaliyah doesn't need, and things like that, because she's with her every day, pretty much all evening. So she's coming. So myself, her father, Aaliyah's father, our BCBA, and our RBT, they're all going to come. So that'll be great. And that's kind of like your army, your crew to gear you up. And the reason why you want to bring other people is because, like I said, it can be overwhelming if it's just you and, 10, 15 other people, and they're looking at you, and, it's a lot. So it's nice to have, a couple people with you who can ask questions, who might think of something that you didn't think of, to be by your side. And the nice thing about having your BCBA, your RBT, if you use a speech therapist, occupational therapist, whatever services your child needs, the nice thing about bringing those folks in is that they can speak on a clinician level, and really speak to what really works, what really doesn't work, and also talk about the goals that they currently are working on with your child outside of the school setting. I can say, oh, these are our goals, but they can say these are our goals because of whatever. And this is what we're doing to help her reach her goals. This is how quickly she reached this goal in the last quarter, or how, whatever. They can speak more intelligently about what's really going on. And so it's really important to bring those folks in. I know that they oftentimes have a lot of insight that parents don't have. So it's great to bring those folks in. But also, too, something that I do want to recommend, if you aren't able to bring folks in, if you don't have those services implemented or anything like that, something that I really suggest that you do is please, 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 if you don't get anything else from the video, please get a pen and paper out and write down questions. Write down questions or suggestions or things that you want to see happen for your child, because you are your child's advocate. You are the person who makes sure that they get the most quality education that they can. So whatever questions come to mind, write them down. You've got 10 days. I've got 10 days to think about things. So every time I think of something, I'm going to write it down. And I'm going to have my pen or my paper ready for that meeting. And I'm just going to go down the list. Fortunately, I don't have as many concerns or suggestions as I did year one. But I do have some things that I want to discuss and that I wouldn't mind seeing adjusted. Once it's finalized, once you've signed it, once everybody else on the team has signed it, because everybody has to sign it, who's in that meeting. But once everybody signs it, this is like the law. Like, they have to follow what's on here. They have to make those accommodations for your kid. They have to do these things. And that's why a lot of times, especially if you've talked to other people before about IEP meetings, a lot of people suggest getting legal counsel to go over the IEP, look at the documents, make sure everything looks good. Because unfortunately, we love to think that everybody has the best intentions and that they are truly here for your child. Unfortunately, sometimes they're not. And so you really got to, take it that next step forward and make sure that everything is working and, for the benefit of your child. So I do know some people who do bring legal counsel into their IEP meetings, and before they sign anything, they do get it, reviewed by a lawyer and things like that. And I'm not against that at all. And that may be something that you want to look into for sure. But things can, like I said before, be stressful. They can be overwhelming. So you definitely want to have your notes. You want to have your army with you, whether that's your other parent, a grandparent, clinicians that work with your kid routinely. You want to have them with you, because what you don't remember, they might remember, or what you didn't ask, they might ask, or vice versa. So it's important to have that. It's important to know that if you're not happy with the IEP that is created during that meeting, that you don't have to sign it, that you can ask for it to be revised, that it's a document that, and a plan that everyone has to come to agreement with. So do not feel pressure to sign something that you don't agree with. I hope and pray that when you walk into your meeting, it goes great, everything's perfect, and that you walk out, just feeling like, the next year that this IEP is in place, that everything's going to be good. But if you don't, you need to know that you don't have to sign anything. Okay. So keep that in the back of your mind. Keep that in the back of your mind. Our first IEP, I was like, I was so overwhelmed. And I was like, did I ask everything? And does this IEP really cover everything that we feel are issues? And, it was a lot. So know that you can sleep on it. You don't have to sign it right then. You can sleep on it. They can't do anything until you sign it. So I want you to know that as well. And also, too, another note, once that IEP is signed, once it is in place, hold people accountable, come in, knowing what you want to come out of this meeting. Come with your army, because honestly, they're going to be your people that you're going to rely on. And just know that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And this only is in place to help benefit your child. I'm super excited for our IEP meeting. I can't wait to change her goals. I can't wait to see her success. And I'm hoping there's very little on her IEP that the needs are just keep decreasing and decreasing and decreasing, because she is doing so much well. She is thriving so much. I do want to note and put it out there that I think a lot of her success not only is because of her ABA therapy, or because of our parenting, or because of whatever related to us outside of school, but I think her success is really can be attributed to and can be highly related to the fact that she is a very seasoned, tenured teacher. Her teacher's been teaching over 20 years. I think 17 of those years has been in first grade, so that's great. She's a twin mom like myself, and her so we relate from that standpoint. And this is the first year that she has put her daughters in the same classroom, and this is the first year that I've put them in the same classroom since they were about 3 years old. So we are growing and learning together. Her teacher is so invested. She has her accountability partner with her sister in her classroom. They don't sit together, but she could look across the room and be like, "Oh, my sissy's looking at me like I guess I better do this," or whatever. But she is thriving, doing so well. She is right where she needs to be grade level wise. Of course, she has her struggles with certain things, specifically English language arts, but she is doing so much better than she did last year. And I'm super excited about that. So I will be posting new content soon. If you found value in this video, please like, share, subscribe, the whole nine, guys. And I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.